Today, I'm going to be talking about the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. I know the title seems to be a little simple and perhaps cheesy, but the principles outlined in this book are incredible. I've read this book many times, and each time I fully incorporate new principles into my personality. The following principles are just a few of my favorites that I would like to share with you today. I will provide examples from the book as well as my own stories. The first principle is arouse in the other person an eager want. Why should we talk about what we want with people? Of course, we are interested in what we want, but no one else is. The only way to influence other people is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it. Henry Ford once said, if there is any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own. Andrew Carnegie, the steel industry tycoon, once bet his sister in law $100 that he could get her kids to respond to a letter he wrote. The kids were away at school and weren't answering their mother's letters. So Carnegie wrote his nephews a nice letter and mentioned that he was sending each kid $5. However, he didn't enclose any money. The replies came back thanking Carnegie for the letters and asking about the $5 because they couldn't find it. You see, Carnegie created an eager want in them, so they wanted to send the letters back to get the $5. The second principle I want to talk about is let the other person feel the idea is his or hers. No one likes to feel like they're being sold something. You know that feeling you get when you're at a car dealership and they keep trying to sell you on a certain car and they keep telling you about the benefits and this and that and they keep telling you over and over again. It's almost like being told what to do, and that's uncomfortable. I mean, we prefer to feel like we're making the decision to buy something on our own. For example, Dale Carnegie, the author of the book, he was planning a vacation up in Canada and contacted the tourism center in New Brunswick. His name was put on their mailing list, and they sent him an overwhelming amount of brochures and testimonials from the local camps and hotels in New Brunswick. However, one of the camps just sent names and telephone numbers of people that visited the camp, and most of these numbers were from the New York area where Carnegie lived. So the main person at the camp told Carnegie to call them, to call the numbers and find out for himself what the camp had to offer. Carnegie recognized one of the names and called that person about his experience. Needless to say, Carnegie booked his trip to that camp shortly after. And the reason is because the other hotels and camps were trying to sell Carnegie on the camp service. But the last one let Carnegie do the work himself, and he sold himself. The third principle I want to discuss is to talk in terms of the other person's interest. By talking about what other people are interested in, you win their hearts. What person doesn't want to talk about the things that are most interesting and exciting to them? Now, everyone who has ever talked to or visited Theodore Roosevelt was always impressed at the range and diversity of knowledge that he possessed. He always knew what to say to his guests in relation to their interest. The reason Roosevelt had this knowledge was because he would stay up late the night before, reading and learning the topics that interested his future guests. To get people to be on your side, talk about things that they're passionate about. When I was running an internet business years ago, I actually used this tactic. I failed time and time again to recruit people to the business. However, one day in a bookstore, I saw someone looking at a Sherlock Holmes novel. Being a fan of Sherlock Holmes myself, I struck up a conversation about the book and the stories in the Sherlock Holmes series. Needless to say, we talked for about 25 minutes. After we talked about Sherlock Holmes, I happened to mention my business, and he agreed to meet with me the next day, and he made an appointment. The fourth principle I want to talk about today is to call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Most people take offense or resent the people that call out their mistakes. And people are usually sensitive to direct criticism, and sometimes that could be the difference between failure and success in changing or influencing people. So, the more effective way to correct others' mistakes is to call attention to them indirectly. An example of this is how I handled the situation with my mom smoking in the house when my cat was diagnosed with asthma. She wanted to smoke in the house because it was during the winter, so I made a deal with her. I told her that she could smoke in her own room, and she would have to shut the door, and I would keep my cat from going in there. One day I smelt smoke running through the house. I looked upstairs, and sure enough, the door was open. What made matters worse was that I couldn't find my cat either. However, instead of yelling at her and cursing at her, I just walked into the room, I grabbed my cat, I turned around to her, asked her how her day was. And then as I left the room, I looked at her as I closed the door. She knows she was in the wrong, so I didn't have to make a point of letting her know that. She was able to see it on her own while I shut the door. Plus, I asked her about her day, so I made her feel like I wasn't mad and that she still was important to me even though she messed up. The fifth principle is dramatize your ideas. Stating merely the truth isn't enough anymore. We are constantly bombarded and surrounded by entertainment through television, movies, games, iPhones. So the truth, no matter what it is, has to be more vivid, interesting, and more dramatic for it to be effective. The example in the book is a man in the 50s was selling cash registers for a living. During one sale, he was at a local grocery store and saw that the owner had outdated registers at the checkouts. He approached the owner and told him that he was literally throwing away pennies every time a customer went through his line. However, when the salesman said this, he actually threw pennies onto the ground in the store. And this really got the owner's attention. Now, needless to say, the owner ordered all new registers to replace the outdated ones from the cash register salesman. Another principle I want to discuss might be one of my favorites. It's throw down a challenge. Frederick Herzberg, a famous behavioral scientist, did a study on work attitudes of thousands of people, ranging from laborers to executives. The most important motivator for people in a work setting was actually the work itself, not money, benefits, or good working conditions, just the work itself. If the work was exciting and interesting, the worker looked forward to doing it and was motivated to do a good job. Every successful person loves to prove his or her worth. People want to excel, they want to win and feel important. Every person loves a good challenge. Charles Schwab, another steel industry tycoon, had a factory manager whose people weren't producing their quota of work. The manager said that he has tried everything. He yelled at them, threatened their jobs, and even attempted to coax them a little. Nothing seemed to be working. The conversation between Schwab and the manager took place at the end of the day, right before the night shift came in. Schwab grabbed a piece of chalk and asked a worker the number of full sheets of steel done that day. He replied 6. Schwab wrote just the number 6 on a board and walked away. When the night shift came in, they were curious what the 6 meant. The day workers told him that Schwab was in the factory and asked how many sheets of steel they made. When Schwab came in the next day, the 6 had actually been rubbed out and was replaced with a big 7 by the night shift. So when the day shift came in the morning, they saw the 7 and they knew they could do better than that. So at the end of the day shift was able to write a 10 on the board. Seems like production was picking up. Just by giving the people the opportunity to prove their worth, they will come through. The last one that I want to talk about today is that to remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. The average person is more interested in his or her own name than in all other names on earth put together. It is considered the easiest and nicest compliment. A name sets the person apart from everyone else. It is their unique footprint or fingerprint in the world. I noticed the power of someone's name or saying someone's name when I was at a bar in Atlantic City. There were a bunch of people sitting around the bar talking amongst each other and only paying attention to the bartender whenever they needed a drink. Well, my friend and I decided we would talk to the bartender. So I called him over by his name and began to talk to him. I complimented on his name because, it was different and I liked it. And as soon as I mentioned how much I liked his name, his whole persona changed. He made sure to take care of us first, and he was even creating his own drink concoctions for us at the end of the night. Also, when the tab came at the end, I realized that he didn't even charge us for one round of drinks. So the power of remembering someone's name and calling them by their name it makes a huge difference. The principles, like the title, are simple. However, they are more prolific than cheesy. These guidelines have made me a better person and a better leader. So, if you guys take anything away from this speech, I hope it is this: incorporate one of these principles into your own life. Every time you are in a situation where one of these principles applies, use it and keep track of your results. Thank you.